Hello, booktube. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
We are Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot.
And it's cold inside.
Yeah, we've brought back the real star of the channel, Nelle's blanket. So today we have an idea for a video. We're going to discuss literary fiction and where you should start if you're just trying to get into it.
Yeah.
But
I guess the couple of things is to consider where you're getting into it from. Are you just not a reader? Have you come from reading all classics at school? Or are you a genre? Are you stuck in one genre? You're trying to escape? And also, I guess, what do we mean by literary fiction?
yeah, I guess the question of what is literary fiction is one of these questions that people don't like to answer. But we've come up with a few theories, and none of them, I don't think any of them are 100% accurate. But I think that if you sort of take the average of all of these ideas, you might get an idea of what literary fiction is. So the idea that I came up with was literary fiction and genre fiction exist sort of opposed to each other, and genre fiction is a novel that is heavily plot based, where with literary fiction is focusing on something other than plots, such as characters, themes, setting, emotions.
Yeah. Whereas I sort of think of literary fiction as classics in waiting. Like, these are the cream of the crop of whatever is created, and we're just waiting 100 years to see if they're gonna stick around.
Yeah. But there is no one.
No. And there is
definition.
obviously the third real super cynical idea, which is literary fiction are the books that are too hard to market as anything else.
Yeah. Or everything is literary fiction.
Yeah.
But let's ignore that last one because it doesn't help us classify books. I think that there are probably a few things with literary fiction. Just to classify something as literary fiction doesn't necessarily mean that it's hard. There are definitely different levels in literary fiction. Like, I wouldn't recommend that you come straight in and go, oh, I'm going to read some James Joyce. That's clearly a hard book.
Yeah, and there's also books that you can enjoy sort of on a beginner level, even though they might have more complexity available for further study. I certainly don't think that just because we're suggesting a book here for beginners, I don't think that means that they're not complex.
Yeah, there's definitely themes that you can get. I think every reader of literary fiction will reread books and get more out of those books. And I think that the idea that anybody will get everything in a book in the one reading is just the most, including the author, is like insane. Yeah, let's get in with our recommendations for where we should start with literary fiction, shall we?
Yes.
All right, so this is the author that you suggested first, and they've got 3 books out. Quakey Easy.
Yeah, they're awesome. Their books tend to be short, which I think is one of the reasons, and also very layered. So there's sort of some easy to grab onto themes and ideas, and also much deeper depths that you might take a little bit longer to get to.
I think that Quakey Easy has the book Pet out, which is a combination of young adult and literary fiction. It, uses literary fiction techniques to make a book aimed at young adults that is actually really, really accessible and easy to understand. And I think that is an excellent starting point if you are coming up to literary fiction as a YA reader. That's probably the book that you should start with.
Yeah.
But also they have 2 other books that are incredibly good books, Freshwater and The Death of Vivek Oji.
Yes.
I think Freshwater especially is so rich and so layered. So too is Vivek Oji, that the idea that you could get everything out of those books is exactly, that's exactly the point you're making.
They're also very short and very easy to reread, and because Akwaeke Amazing is so active on social media and really giving of their time to discuss their works, if you're unsure about things after the first reading, Google it, listen to the readings and the talks and the discussions that are available on YouTube, and then read it again, because the second time round you'll pick up on so many things that were hidden from you the first time.
And once you've finished reading an Akwaeke Amazing book, look out for the conflict between Nigerian sort of folklore, traditional beliefs versus Western modern
colonialized white people,
and the racism that causes.
Yeah.
All right. The next author on the list is George Orwell. Now you don't like to discuss George Orwell because he committed a crime in your view.
He did commit a crime.
But
in everyone's view.
In everyone's.
It's not funny. It's a crime.
George Orwell shot an elephant and wrote a book about it
and profited off it.
Orwell's writing is incredibly simple, and Orwell was one of the first writers to really champion this idea that literature should be for everybody. And he has a quote which is, if you can say something in one word when you've used two, or if you can say something with a shorter word where you've used a longer word, do it. And that's how he writes his novels.
Yeah, it's very pared back, so you know that if something is in there that seems to be flowery or extraneous, he is making a point, which makes it really easy to find those themes and recurring ideas.
Yeah. One of the things I like in Orwell's work is the names of the characters. If he's given somebody a really basic name, he's just given them a name. If they're George or Gordon or whatever. But if he's given them a different name, Napoleon, Winston, then he's thought about that and done that for a reason.
Yeah.
And that is something that you can really think about and unlock. Also, Orwell wrote with his political views in mind, and you can really see themes of socialism and anti-authoritarianism, and it's really good to look out for them.
Yeah, I guess the next sort of section, group of books that we want to talk about are all within a similar sort of frame of, some of it is what would be classed as autofiction, which is sort of a cross between autobiographical experience and fiction. Some of it is even memoir, but very literary memoir. But all of it is, I guess it has a base note of human experience and shared understanding of what suffering and that sort of thing is like. So even if some of the more academic elements of the book are a struggle, you're still going to get a lot from these titles because they are so rich on that base level.
It's so easy to connect to the emotions that the characters feel in these books.
Absolutely. So the first one on the list is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Ellis Russell. I read this last year and it was just one of the most powerful books I've ever read. It is about it's a dual timeline where you get the story of this woman when she is 16 and then again when she is 34. She has what she believes to be a relationship with her teacher when she is 16. And when she is 34, she discovers that he had sexual relations with other children at her school. And she's sort of confronted with this idea that maybe her relationship was not what she thought it was.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult to read book emotionally. It's just probably one of the most complex representations I've ever seen of sexual abuse and child sexual abuse, and filled with imagery and literary allusion and references. So heaps for you to pick out.
Yeah. I think how the consensual relationships compare to the non-consensual relationships in this novel is something really interesting.
And also, if you're reading this one, a good thing to look out for is all the references to other pop cultural ideas of consent.
That actually happened.
In our real world. Yeah.
No Friend But the Mountain by Behrooz Bachani is a a story of a Iranian asylum seeker, a Kurdish Iranian asylum seeker who tried to get to Australia via boat and was locked up in a detention centre on Manus Island. This is the story of his mistreatment at the hands of the Australian government, and not just his mistreatment, the mistreatment of other people in the detention centre.
Yeah, he's done a lot of fictionalisation in order to protect the identities of other people who are still in the, I don't want to say care
system.
In the in the government system. So it is definitely fiction. It is beautifully literary, written in traditional Farsi poetry and then translated after being smuggled out in SMS messages.
Yeah, I'm blown away by...
The base level story of this is so incredible that you don't actually, if everyone should read it just for that. But there's a richness to imagery and to sense of place and ideas about freedom and connectedness with reality and control and all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, and at its simplest level, it's just so unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, our next four novels are just four novels that are just good intros, really.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason. They're just four novels that we think are good intros. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gale Honeyman. This is the tale of a very depressed woman who is suffering from some sort of trauma.
Yeah, she comes across as quite odd, and you wonder what's wrong with her, basically. And it does sort of unfold that there's some stuff that's not quite right.
Yeah, this is it's a tale of depression and alcoholism and friendship, and I think it really, from a literary point of view, really sort of blends this world between this commercial genre fiction and this literary fiction in that it's both.
It is a real character portrait, and while Eleanor does go on a bit of a journey, I think that really the real journey is us getting to know her.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it falls into literary fiction if you're saying that part of that definition is
character led.
Yeah.
And not just us getting to know Eleanor, but Eleanor getting to know herself.
Yeah.
The next one on the list is The Kite Runner by Khalid Hassani. This is a very brutal and a very sad novel that I don't recommend it if you are squeamish.
Yeah. In fact, most of these. In fact, what are you doing reading literary fiction if you're squeamish, to a certain extent?
Well, yeah, I suppose...
There are far less happily ever afters in literary fiction.
Yeah, literary fiction doesn't have the happy ever afters, and one of the things that literary fiction is particularly terrible at doing is including content warnings. And we have not done content warnings for any of these novels.
No, and I do think that if you require content warnings, Storygraph is really a good resource for you to check any titles before you begin.
Yeah. Anyway, the Kite Runner tells the story of these two boys who are friends in Afghanistan. The boys' stories sort of split off and come back, and you find out just this horrific tale of mistreatment and torture and abuse, and it is just dreadfully sad and horrible, but it's very well done.
I think that one of the things that really struck me about the Kite Runner was its real sense of place. I think Room by Emma Donoghue is an excellent starter book because there's a movie, so having a go at reading it and then watching the movie might be a good way to, or the other way around, begin your interest.
Yeah. Another book that it does have a movie. I've not seen the movie.
It's a very old
movie.
Don't know that I would recommend the movie.
How well it's... Yeah. But this is often studied at high schools. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
I would argue that this is a classic. But anyway.
Well, I think Orwell would be a classic as well from this.
But he killed an elephant, so he doesn't deserve it.
This is the story of Scout, and Scout is 6 in this novel. I think she might grow up a little bit from memory.
Yeah.
And how she sees the world around her. And this is how Scout relates to her brother Jem and her father Atticus. And Atticus gets a case where he is defending a black man of a crime that he knows he didn't commit, and he knows he's going to lose, and he's going to defend him anyway. And this is how Scout views her father
as he goes through that process,
and how they're discriminated against because they're defending the black man and the racism they receive.
Yeah.
As a result of associating with it. And it's almost an examination of the systems that keep racism going within the white community.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very, very interesting novel.
Yeah. Well, that's 16 books that are great starting places for
literary fiction. If you're a literary fiction reader, what was the first literary fiction book you read? And if you're not, where do you plan to start?
Yeah. If you're new here, whack that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and have a nice day.